On February 11, 1941, Erwin Rommel, newly designated commander of the German blocking force tasked with defending Italian Libya and its capital Tripoli from any British advances, has arrived in Rome to talk strategy with the Italians. I'm Indy Nidell, and welcome back to this World War II in real-time North Africa miniseries. I'm sure you're itching to find out what Rommel gets up to today and how the situation on the ground develops, so let's not waste any more time. Rommel needs to ensure that his opposite number, Italian Army Deputy Chief of Staff Alfredo Guzzoni, understands and accepts Rommel's orders from Adolf Hitler. We saw last time that Rommel met with Hitler and German Army Chief Walter von Brauchitsch. There, Brauchitsch made clear that he and Hitler thought little of the Italian performance in the war and sent in help and instructions. As Rommel notes, the Italian government should agree to undertake the defense of Tripolitania in the Gulf of Sirte area on a line running south from about Buerat in order to secure the necessary space for the employment of the German Luftwaffe in Africa. This represented a departure from the previous Italian plan, which had been limited to holding the Tripoli defense line. The Italians accept the German change of plan. But speaking of the Luftwaffe, Rommel has another meeting. Later that afternoon, he meets with Hans Geissler, commander of the 10th Flieger Corps, the Luftwaffe unit stationed in Sicily to secure the airspace over the Mediterranean, bomb Malta, and now to also protect supply convoys and support Rommel on the ground in North Africa. This meeting does not go as smoothly as the one with Italian High Command. Rommel wants Geissler to react immediately to the latest British advances towards Tripoli. Just 4 days ago, Operation Compass broke the Italian 10th Army, leading to some 130,000 Italian POWs taken. Not only that, the operation also captured Benghazi and pushed even further, finally coming to rest at El Agheila, a small coastal town in the southern Gulf of Sirte, only some 750 kilometers from Tripoli. Rommel fears the worst. It was not impossible that the next few days would see the arrival of the leading British troops in the outer environs of Tripoli. Something had to be done at once to bring the British offensive to a halt. That something, at least in Rommel's mind, is the Luftwaffe first bombing the harbor of Benghazi that night, then hounding the British columns southwest of the town come morning. Geissler refuses. And why? Well, he is a newly arrived visitor to Italy and not a popular one, and the Italians have impressed upon him the importance of not bombing Benghazi. Too many important Italians, both military and civilian, own property there. Rommel is in charge of the German troops heading for North Africa, but he is not leading the Luftwaffe elements. That is made abundantly clear, as Geissler will continue reporting to the head of the Luftwaffe, Reichsmarschall Hermann Göring. But Rommel enjoys a direct line to Hitler himself. And I mean, literally, Hitler's chief adjutant, Rudolf Schmundt, is with Rommel, right? He is specifically there to show that Rommel enjoys the Führer's favor. So Schmundt immediately contacts headquarters. A couple of hours later, the first planes of 10th Flieger Corps take off to bomb Benghazi. The German attack in North Africa has begun, and if some houses of important Italians are destroyed as a result, then so be it. Now, it seems to me that Benghazi might turn out to be a key position in the logistics war, being a port that sits roughly equidistant between British Egypt and Italian Tripoli. This may very well not be the last time the Luftwaffe pay a visit. Rommel has a lot on his plate over the following days, but he's not the only one confronted with big divisions. General Archibald Wavell, British Commander-in-Chief, Middle East, likewise has lots to think about. However, unlike Rommel, Wavell isn't faced with a disastrous situation to remedy, but rather the question of what to do now, holding the laurels of Operation Compass in hand. Then again, as with Rommel, in the end, it's not really up to him. On the same day Rommel is in Rome, the British Director of Military Intelligence informs the Defense Committee in London that the 23 German divisions currently in Romania, along with the 12 additional ones arriving soon, virtually guarantee an impending German invasion of Greece to support Italy. By then, British Prime Minister Winston Churchill has already announced, "It is quite clear to me that supporting Greece must have priority after the western flank of Egypt has been made secure." Well, with said flank made secure through Operation Compass, Wavell was told in unequivocal terms that Greece was henceforth to take precedence over all other operations in his command. Another development in Greece suggests that new Greek leadership may also be more receptive to the idea of British ground troops deployed here than they have been. On the 29th of January, Greek Prime Minister Ioannis Metaxas dies. Metaxas refused to allow any British ground forces into Greece to assist against the Italians. He feared that an open involvement would likely also invite the Germans to join in, turning the Greco-Italian War into a side theater of the greater European conflict. Yet, with the German involvement now looking like a question of when and not if, and with Metaxas' successor Alexandros Kourtsis more willing to accept British help, not merely RAF squadrons and supplies, but boots on the ground, the situation shifts. While no official offer has been made yet, a meeting is scheduled for the 22nd of February. Now, what does this have to do with the British presence in North Africa? Well, everything. By February 12th, Operation Compass is over. On that day, British High Command decides that all forces should halt and make ready for deployment. To where? To Greece, of course. This does not sit well with all the commanders on the ground, though, especially with Richard O'Connor, Field Commander of the Western Desert Force, WDF, the British-led formation that executed Operation Compass. In his opinion, this plan is reckless and unnecessarily risky, and his reasons are simple. The enemy can't make any move against Egypt until they've landed a large armed force in Africa, right? And if they literally have nowhere to land, then Egypt's western flank is safe, not just temporarily, but indefinitely. Winston Churchill and British High Command disagree. With Greece in ever more need of help and a German attack looming, the decision in their minds is also pretty simple. Many of the battle-hardened troops from Operation Compass are to head across the Mediterranean, and even if a renewed Axis offensive is theoretically possible, it is not at all probable, at least not in the near future. What information there was by the middle of February, and it was unquestionably meager, led General Wavell to consider there would be no serious threat to the British position in Cyrenaica before May at the earliest. That judgment comes even with the German reinforcements inbound, which the British are aware of. British High Command decides that no operations were to be undertaken beyond the frontier of Cyrenaica, which should be held with the minimum possible force necessary to secure the flank of our Egyptian base. So Wavell leaves a skeleton crew to protect the western flank, and the WDF is cannibalized. In Wavell's mind, this minimum possible force comprises an armored force of the strength of one very weak armored brigade, operating with 1.5 battalions of motorized infantry and 1 division of static infantry, and with artillery support on about the normal scale for an infantry division. Part of this force will be the 9th Australian Infantry Division, replacing the outbound 6th, headed for Greece. However, the 9th isn't at full strength. It's also only partially trained, lacks Bren guns, signaling equipment, anti-tank pieces, and transport. Only 5 of the division's 8 infantry battalions had their full allocation of vehicles, and more seriously, brigade-level transport was deficient to a degree that rendered the formation virtually immobile. The 2nd Armored Division will also remain in North Africa. Having only arrived in January, some parts of the 2nd are still raw from home, whereas others have gained some battle experience during Compass. But it will be weakened by the loss of one of its 2 armored brigades, the 1st, and of half of its support group, which will also sail for Greece. What remains, the 3rd Armored Brigade, is in less than stellar condition because of engagements during Compass and a lack of spare parts. All its vehicles had exceeded their recommended engine mileage, making them prone to regular mechanical breakdown. In addition, the 3rd Armored Brigade was under strength, having only 86 of its official complement of 156 tanks, and had to be issued with reconditioned Italian tanks. So, it is not that mighty a force at all, as historian John Connell explains. This so-called division amounted to barely 1 weak armored brigade, not fully mobile, and likely to waste away altogether if it did much fighting. By the middle of February 1941, we're looking at between 12 and 15,000 British Army troops, at least on paper, guarding the western flank in Africa. However, with all the troops destined for Greece moving out, and other elements moving in, it will take a while before the British perimeter is actually set and the troops are in place. While the British forces in North Africa are being replaced with less than optimal elements, on the German side, the opposite is the case. In Tripoli, the first German elements are about to arrive. Erwin Rommel steps onto African soil around noon on February 12th and wastes no time. He wants to get a clear overview of the situation. Remember, at this point, Rommel knows nothing about the British plans. As far as he knows, an advance on Tripoli could be underway right that moment. One of the first things Rommel learns is that local Italian command has experienced some personnel changes. Marshal Rodolfo Graziani, who oversaw the Italian disaster in North Africa in recent weeks, has stepped down. Now the person in charge, and technically Rommel's superior, is Graziani's former chief of staff, Italo Garibaldi. The Italian general is skeptical of Rommel, his own morale badly shaken by the monumental military setbacks. Rommel writes, "Morale was as low as it could be in all military circles in Tripoli. Most of the Italian officers had already packed their bags and were hoping for a quick return trip to Italy." All of this makes one thing clear to Rommel, and he makes a decision. "I had already decided, in view of the tenseness of the situation and the sluggishness of the Italian command, to depart from my instructions to confine myself to a reconnaissance, and to take the command at the front into my own hands as soon as possible, at the latest after the arrival of the first German troops." So he takes to the skies to see what he is working with, and to see whether a defense at the Gulf of Sirte is truly feasible. At his side sits Colonel Schmundt, the two blasting across the blue desert skies in their Heinkel 111. As the terrain unfolds beneath him, Rommel does gain some insight. Between Homs and Tarhuna, two towns flanking the direct approach to Tripoli, both only roughly 100 kilometers from the Libyan capital, hilly mountains dominate the scenery. Not particularly suitable territory for motorized forces, Rommel notes. Soon, however, that changes. Between Homs and Misurata, a level plain, devoid of vegetation, ravines, or other obstacles, stretches far and wide, a plain that reaches all the way to Sirte, the chosen point for defense. What Rommel has seen does not change his plans. It fortifies his resolve, protecting Sirte and both sides of the coastal road, the only suitable line of transport for any attacking or defending force, is Rommel's chosen path. The next day, he is ready to issue the first orders and begin the defense of Tripoli in earnest. His chosen strategy described in 5 words: the best defense is offense. Rommel aims to show the presence of German troops to the British as soon as possible, believing that as soon as the British become aware of them, they will refrain from advancing farther. I mean, if the British don't expect any resistance on their way to Tripoli, why would they stop? The fastest and easiest way to prevent that advance is with planes. But the detachment of Fliegerkorps 10 designated to serve with Rommel in Africa has not arrived yet, and neither have the German troops. So, for the moment, Rommel takes stock of the Italian troops at his disposal. Technically, the orders from Rome and Berlin are clear. Rommel is to command any and all Italian motorized units. Yet, as historian Barry Pitt writes, as Rommel was both liberal in his interpretation of the adjective motorized and forceful in argument, the Italian 10th Corps, consisting of the Brescia and Pavia divisions, were soon moving up. Besides the 10th Corps, there is also a proper motorized division, the 132nd Armored or the Ariete division, right? But much like the Commonwealth troops who remain in North Africa, Rommel's Italian forces are not exactly top-notch either. Morale is one issue, but something Rommel could maybe fix somewhat through basic charisma, but that's not all. 10th Corps doesn't have much artillery, and while Ariete has like 120 tanks, there's an issue with those tanks, as Rommel observes. Tanks of completely obsolete design, far too light, and had once been used to chase the natives round Abyssinia. But all is not lost. Aside from the machinery, the Ariete division is efficient, well-organized, and well-trained. Rommel works with what he's got, so on the 13th he orders 10th Corps forward to the Sirte Buerat area, while Ariete is to follow, taking up a defensive position west of Buerat. Aware of the already precarious logistical situation, Rommel knows it will take a while before these troops arrive at their destination. Should the British push forward in these days, the only road bump they'd encounter is a force about regimental size already stationed at Sirte. Rommel does not think they stand a chance against the British. This meant the only force we had immediately available with which to hold up the enemy, apart from the weak Italian garrison at Sirte, was the German Luftwaffe. Then, on February 14th, the first elements of the 5th Light Armored Division arrive at the port of Tripoli. By around 6:30 p.m., Reconnaissance Battalion 3 and the 39th Panzerjäger Tank Destroyer Battalion are waiting to unload. Rommel knows speed is of the essence, so disembarkation will proceed throughout the night under lamplight, making a pretty open invitation to the RAF to end the German assistance to the Italians before it has even come ashore. As Rommel comments, the danger of enemy air attack simply had to be accepted. Yet that night, from the 14th to the 15th, the skies remain quiet, and 6,000 tons worth of cargo are unloaded, a new record for the port of Tripoli, or at least according to Rommel. After receiving their tropical kit, the Germans conduct a quick parade through the town. For one thing, to give the British spies something to talk about, but also to boost morale. A success, as Rommel relays. They radiated complete assurance of victory, and the change of atmosphere did not pass unnoticed in Tripoli. Then it is time for orders. Both units are to push east immediately, also taking up positions at Sirte. The 3rd Reconnaissance Battalion under Baron von Weckmar reaches Sirte the 16th. That same day, the local air contingent, 60 Stukas and 20 Bf-110s, also lands on African soil. Rommel immediately orders new airstrips prepared closer to the front. Also on the 16th, the first combined German and Italian push towards the British is ordered. The 3rd Recon, with its 2 armored car and 1 motorcycle companies, together with the Santa Maria Column, which is a motley crew put together from the Ariete Division and 10th Corps, fielding a machine gun company, a light tank company, 2 anti-tank platoons, an AA section, sappers, and 2 field gun batteries, sets off towards Sirte. Rommel is already pushing the envelope. For far from simply occupying Sirte, Rommel instructs his troops to go further, to Norfilia, which is not even 160 kilometers from the British positions. They are en route by the 17th and arrive the 19th. On the 18th, the Luftwaffe picks up its pace, and offensive action is conducted by night. But the Germans underestimate the hostile atmospheric conditions, resulting in some planes being lost and the rest aborting the mission. So El Agheila, Benghazi, Tobruk remain safe for the time being. And that brings me to the end of this week. The first German and Italian elements in a defensive-offensive move are headed straight towards the British lines. The first encounter between the two seems not that far away, and with it, Britain and Germany will expand their conflict to a new continent. Rommel seems to be in good spirits regarding the future. On the 17th, he writes to his wife, "Dearest Lou, everything's splendid with me and mine in this glorious sunshine. I'm getting on very, very well with the Italian command and couldn't wish for better cooperation. My lads are already at the front, which has been moved about 350 miles to the east. As far as I am concerned, they can come now. But until they do, there are many open questions. Which British Army units will meet the Germans, and what will their condition be? And this Axis force in Africa, will it perhaps be given a catchy name? Maybe we'll find out next week. Heck, maybe the armies will clash. Who can see the future?" Well, forget about those armies for just a moment. Join the Time Ghost Army, for that is what brings you this series and all of our other series. You can join the army at timeghost.tv or patreon.com, and you will be happy that you did. Christopher Flynn is the Army's African ally this week, and these are the newest commissioned officers. Do not forget to subscribe. See you next time.